Hello, everybody. Sheridan Ganger here with HelpShift. I am pleased to be joined by Christian Calderon, the head of marketing and user acquisition at Dots, and his colleague, Eric Glover, community manager. Hey, guys.
Hey, how's it going?
Hey.
Good. Thank you so much for joining us in today's webinar or fireside chat, Google Hangout. I think we've coined it a couple of things over the past couple months. Just a high-level introduction into this series. Christian, we were pleased to have you join us at the More Summit during GDC at the St. Regis back in March, where you participated on a panel around user acquisition and engagement. So this is kind of a carryover of that event from talking to our community over the past couple of weeks after GDC. When we got a little break in March, people said, Sheridan, that content was gold. Like, we want to hear more. We want to get in front of these thought leaders and really hear their experience, learn best practices. So that's what we're looking to do here. So this is our second webinar in this series around scaling engagement and the value of community. So we're so pleased to have you guys here to dive in and talk about engagement and how that really sparks virality.
Thanks.
Thanks so much for having us.
We're happy to be here.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Before we get started, let's give the audience a little bit of background. Who are you guys? Can you guys tell us a little bit about Dots and your roles at Dots?
Yeah, sure. So I'm Christian. I run marketing and UA here. I started, basically, background on me, I started off as an investment banker covering the games industry, and then moved over to a company called Kixeye, where I ran revenue there. And recently, last year, moved over to Dots. Dots is a casual games developer in the mobile space, and we make mostly puzzle games. And we're all about thoughtful games, art-inspired games with thoughtful design.
Before I came to Dots, I worked at a Black media group. I ran a small website called 24 Wired. It was a place to curate different content starring Black celebrities, Black reality stars. I curated content. I ran social media for it, Facebook and Twitter, and that's what made me feel prepared to join Dots last year. So I came on to Dots as someone who was a community manager to the point of handling customer support, but now I handle social media as well.
Awesome, and I know we have a couple of questions that really get into the value of having that personal connection on social media. So that'll be in kind of the latter half of our event. But first, I really want to get into engagement. And there's a lot of misconception around what this truly means in this kind of mobile-first economy. So Christian, I want to turn it over to you. How do you guys define user engagement at Dots?
Yeah, so engagement is really the summation of any kind of event that could happen where we interact with a user and serve an impression. It can be anything from a negative engagement, someone unliking a page, for example, or positive engagement, someone replying with a very positive feedback. We look at all this different types of engagements, and then we find which ones that have the most positive correlations on our business. And so those happen to be things like retweets, shares, more powerful engagements where users are actually doing something that really shows that they like the post or the brand or the game, the ad that we serve, the type of impression that we're giving out. So we look at define engagement as some of actions that happen when we serve an impression, and then we dive in a little bit deeper and look at the types of engagements that users are committing or doing, and which of those engagements are more valuable.
Great, and can you get into a little bit more of the metrics around that, and also what sort of engagements are you guys seeing as kind of the top of the funnel for Dots?
Yeah, so I'll let Eric talk a little bit about on the social side. From a user acquisition perspective, we look at retweets and shares. So what we've done is we've run basically a regression of all the types of engagements that happen when we serve an ad. And then when we serve that ad, we look at which of those engagements have the largest correlation with installs and largest correlation with a decrease in CPI. And that happens to be retweets or shares. And the reason is because as a user is retweeting or sharing, they're doing really three things. And the first is it's a sign of validation. So as you continue to accumulate more shares and retweets, it shows on the ad. The second is as a user is retweeting, you're getting earned media. And that earned media is driving organic uplift, which is decreasing your effective CPI and basically lowering your total costs. And then the last thing is reducing costs from the organic uplift. So retweets.
That's what everybody likes to hear, right? Reducing costs.
Yeah. And for us, from a UA perspective, it's the most valuable type of metric that we see.
Awesome. And I just wanted to piggyback on that one. User acquisition, that's a topic that we heard a lot around in GDC, and the cost of user acquisition. I hosted Amir Ibrahimi from Luminary for our second webinar in our first series, and that was kind of one of the biggest kind of pain points that he was talking about, is that it gets so expensive to really acquire new users, especially when you're launching a new game. So really, engagement can help lower those costs. Can you speak a little bit more to how you guys are seeing that kind of lower cost of acquisition just by engaging with your community?
Yeah, so one of the after effects of acquiring users by targeting engagement is that as you start to acquire users, over time they build up. And
Yep.
so these are users that like your Facebook page or follow your Twitter account. And what happens is as you start accumulating a more engaged user base over time, and those users will have the propensity to be more viral over time as a whole.
Mm-hmm.
So by doing that, it can help lower your total cost by having a much higher uplift on UA campaigns. And you can kind of look at that, measure that over time with the tools available today.
Like what? Like what tools do you guys use?
So like just like your ads.twitter.com, they have an analytics platform. The same with Facebook, they have an analytics platform. And you can see there you can look at engagement metrics and your engagement over time. And you can even compare it to your competitors. So we'll look at our engagement rates and compare it to competitors, and we can see basically how engaged our user base is compared to others.
Awesome. Eric, any kind of thoughts on that? Do you have any insight in terms of the community?
Yeah, I'd say that likes, shares, and comments are just top-notch what I want most out of Facebook interactions for sure. That's what I always look for, is like the powerhouse engagements.
Mm-hmm. Powerhouse engagements. I like that. I might have to use that one.
Thanks. Clicks on Facebook in particular are valuable, but I think probably not quite as valuable as likes and comments and shares. Likes and comments and shares like really seem to tell us when something has resonated with people rather than when they were just curious about something. When people click on things on Facebook, which is our flagship social media platform, sometimes it's just to look at something that has like a small font or a post that has multiple photos that they have to go through. Just because they went through it or just because they wanted a closer look does not mean that it really resonated with them enough to like be excited about it or joyful. And how we tell if they're joyful is just making sure that clicks are not what we base the value of our post on. The better I do at my job of engaging people with those powerhouse metrics, the less work Christian has to do in promoting things. I get to make things viral and say that I put up a particularly awesome post, and Christian doesn't have to pay anyone to see it because in our community it did particularly well.
So what is an awesome post, right? Like this is something that any business needs to be thinking about right now, right? Social media is this avenue. It's not a new avenue, but it is an avenue that can really lower costs and spark that pure human collaboration. So what content is really resonating with your community?
That is a good question, one I've been working really, really hard to answer over the past few months with a lot of help from the team. We've done a lot of trial and error trying to figure that out. And one thing that has done exceptionally well, which is a bit outside of my expectations, are posts that are really, really simple and really on brand. Our top title is Two Dots. It's a sequel to our original game, Dots, which has a lot more engagement, a lot more users. And that's the game that I thought could benefit most from having story-related posts, things that had to do with the characters when you're not looking at the game. We tried to create a weekly comic with the characters of the game, and I thought that that would bring people back once a week just to check in on how their favorites were doing. But in fact, like something as simple as a meme that is an in-joke for what the Two Dots experience is like is a lot more resonant. People didn't tend to care about anything story-related. They just cared about things that made them know that we recognize their pain when we don't come out with levels on time. When we don't come out with levels quickly enough for them, that they're on time because we can't put them out any faster.
No players have high expectations.
Yeah. When we highlight the fact that we know what it's like when they lose all their lives too quickly and have to wait another 20 minutes for their lives. It's a joke between us and them that seems to resonate more and get the most comments, likes, and shares, the powerhouse metrics.
So I would say, so did you have something to say, Christian? Sorry.
Oh yeah, no, I mean, I think Eric's definitely on point. You know, the type of content that we put out and how it's relevant to our user base is extremely important. From a medium perspective or format type, interstitials, they do very well and vary based on content. We do see that videos, if posted natively, tend to perform extremely well. So that's posting a video onto Facebook, but uploading it from Facebook, or posting as opposed to sharing like a YouTube link, tend to have a lot more reach in terms of the audience that we can reach out to.
And picking up with, I'm sorry, were you gonna say something else?
Oh, no, I was just gonna say, like, high level, the key takeaway for me here is, like, try things, get your feet wet with new experiences for your community. They're going to tell you what's working and what's not, and you'll be able to scale your programs accordingly.
Yeah. The only thing I was going to add to what Christian and I were just saying is that current events have helped us out too. Yeah. When that viral picture of the blue and black dress versus the white and gold dress went out, our illustrator took the initiative and said, hey, like, we see that this is blowing up on Tumblr and on Twitter, why don't we have a comment about it? And that was the time to integrate our characters into our posts. We had the characters looking at the dress and trying to determine themselves which color that dress was. That was funny enough to get lots of shares and lots of likes. We did a Super Bowl post or two that really, really resonated with people, got more shares than I've seen since I've been here. Anything that has to do with things that are relevant to people's lives just outside of the game seems to do really well.
Things are outside of the game. That's actually funny that you guys mentioned that, because I always tell my team here when we're talking about our content strategy is, don't try to reinvent the wheel. Don't think that you need to do everything from scratch and on your own. There's a lot of good content out there that can be recycled and then adjusted to meet the fit of your brand. So great point there. So Christian, I'm going to bring it back to you. So at the More Summit, you talked a lot about user engagement and how that lowers the cost of user acquisition. Was this a strategy that you outlined prior to launching Dots, or was this something that you guys just came up with during the launch phase? How should companies, indie or large enterprise companies, be thinking about imposing such a strategy in terms of engagement pre, during, after launch?
Yeah, so it was something that we noticed. We knew that with certain types of engagements, you could lower costs. There are engagements too that could increase costs. Like, for example, if, like Eric said, if you're paying on a CPC and you're getting lots of clicks, and those aren't necessarily turning into installs, that could totally increase your costs. So the types of engagements that we were aiming for were viral engagements where we would get earned media. The thing that we didn't actually fully understand was the added benefits to that, and that was the validation that we would get. and how that would build a user base over time and actually create subsequent posts on social and subsequent user acquisition campaigns and make them more viral over time. In terms of forming a strategy, it really is a long-term thing, because these types of engagements that we're basically targeting, you can't imagine that you're going to capture lightning in a bottle and then have something very viral that explodes. It's something that we can't, as a business, rely on. But what we can think about is, how do these metrics build up over time, and how does our user base become more engaging and more viral over time? And having a long-term strategy, I think, is very important, because as you increase the engagement of your user base over time, the propensity that you can create something, the likelihood that you can create something more viral is a lot higher. So I think having a long-term strategy on the KPIs that you're trying to improve, and then clear actions on how you can do that, as not only as a byproduct of other campaigns, but kind of as an overall strategy for your business, not only in like user acquisition, but in social, anytime you're interacting with a user.
Great. That I wrote actually some notes there. So thank you so much for that insight. I know everybody on the line is definitely thinking, identify my KPIs and then meet the actions to match those. So we've talked a lot about player expectations, right? We understand that players are highly sophisticated and very modern and expect a certain amount of collaboration with the game, right? So with advanced tools like in-app chat and in-app feedback, how are you guys seeing this kind of correlated to engagement? Is that a tough one? Sorry. Take a second to think about it. I'm really just trying to pull in kind of the actual tools that you're offering your players in-game that's kind of really help kind of spark internal engagement.
Yeah, so what we've noticed is that having tools and interactions in-game is extremely powerful. When we've ran tests where we would offer something in the game and then take it out and try to achieve that same action out of game, and it's extremely difficult.
Yep.
So for example, and I'll give you an example of this. We have 2 musicians in-house, and they make music for the game, for all of our games, and we release that music as an album, and with every release of a major update. And so we and you know, our fans love the music, and so we did a test where we sold the album in game, and it did extremely well.
There you go.
And then we sold the album out of game, and it did not do as well as we sold it in game. So the interactions that the types of engagements that the actions that you're targeting in game can be very, very powerful. The problem is that from a user interface perspective and from a product perspective, we want our games to be extremely simple and easy to use. We're looking at short session lengths, and we want the user just to have fun with the core gameplay experience. So there's checks and balances that you have to take into account when thinking about that. But definitely, the game itself is a very huge platform for driving particular actions or engagements.
Absolutely, thank you. Any thoughts, Eric, on that? I know it's maybe not in your scheme of things, but.
Yeah, no, Christian pretty much nailed it on the head for me.
Awesome. So let's talk about culture for a little bit. So engagement for brands really ties into the culture you build within your studio, right? So when you're looking to scale your team, I know you guys are, you're a smaller team, but how do you guys bring culture into that piece of the puzzle when building community internally, when building kind of the user acquisition team internally? What do you guys look for?
And well, so far, when I came on at first to Dots and looked at some of the posts that did particularly well, a lot of them had to do with just having a sense of humor. Dots characters, if I may say so myself, are pretty adorable. And they lend themselves to a lot of goofy situations or illustrations. They're just very silly. They make you really feel good. They make you want to hang out with them. So when I came on board, I found that continuing that sense of tone of just being able to relax and smile while you're on our page was something to really try to perpetuate in any way I could. There's a couple different ways you could approach humor. It could involve sarcasm or snarkiness or playful. Yeah, but yeah, it doesn't seem to fit Dots, or it doesn't seem to be what makes people like us when they hang out with us on Twitter and on social media. So that's one approach to in community culture. Another thing that I found particularly interesting since joining is that putting up posts about what we do in the offices as people has really resonated with people too. There's a goofy, hilarious, wonderful guy here named Mike who's really into fitness, and he likes doing push-ups every hour. So he's invited other people to join him in doing that. And one time I just walked in on a couple people doing push-ups, and one of them was on the table doing them. It was really silly. It was a funny, fun-filled moment. I snapped a pic, or a few, put them on Facebook, and people were really curious about us and what goofballs we were. And they learned that we were people behind a game that enthralls them sometimes and frustrates them other times. But it reminds them that we have fun too, that we're just like them, and that goofiness that they might sense on our social media might actually be something that's present in the real world too.
Yeah, it's something we really enforce in the recruiting process. Culture is up there before like ability to perform at your at whatever job function. We've had candidates come into the office that were amazing, just like people even that I've like looked up to and really studied at whatever field, and same with others. But if for a culture fit, if we didn't think that it would be, if we had any doubts or reservations about culture fit, it's someone we usually pass on.
Okay.
And so we try to enforce that, day zero when somebody comes in, and like Eric mentioned, the whole team really plays a part into the persona that we put off as a company and as a brand. We have a review process once a week. Eric runs a meeting where we review a lot of his ideas and the content that he's putting out, and everyone kind of chimes in, including one of our co-founders on what we think is going to really resonate that week and the next week in terms of the content we put out. So it's every single post we put out, we think about, and we go over and we look at the copy and we look at the content, and we think is it something that we as a team like, and is it something that we want to portray as a brand?
Absolutely.
It starts at day zero, before you walk in the door, and it perpetuates through the existence of the culture here.
Good. And I think that's, you touched on a couple of things that are made kind of the light bulbs go off in my head. That how you guys build your culture is really how people are going to perceive your brand, right? That is something that I think every company should be thinking about, large and small. It's the people, right? That you guys just said. You're not just cogs in the wheel, right? You're people moving the needle forward, building your team. So that said, I want to bring it back to the player, right? A player is a person too. And I think that sometimes people kind of tend to forget or tend to look beyond. But as a player using Dots, how do you get them to become your advocates, right? How do you get them to feel engaged with this culture so that they become your promoters, help you lower your cost of user acquisition?
Yeah, one crucial thing I've come to learn is that people will approach emailing me or emailing the support team saying, like, I will give this game 5 stars if you just help me. Please just fix this bug. I'm dying here. what they're asking for really is just empathy and to be treated as if they're important. That's all they want to feel. And once they feel listened to, they're willing to do things like give a 5-star review to us or just sing our praises to people on Facebook. And I got that experience firsthand because I was doing customer support more closely earlier in my job here at Dots. And it was amazing how little it took to make people feel like they were really valued and cherished by me. I told them like I was upset like them about the problem, that it was frustrating to me that they were experiencing it, that I was working with my engineer, that my engineer could only talk to me on this date so they could have an expectation that was moderate enough to be pleased by once I fulfilled it. Just making them know that I was on their team went a long way in the beginning. It still goes a long way now. And a small experiment we're doing, still related to your question, just in a different field a little bit, is putting up more shareable content as if we anticipate that their love for the game is something that they're going to want to wear with pride. So recently I put up 2 posters for someone to put up on Facebook saying like, this guy loves 2 dots or this gal loves 2 dots. And there's a character's finger pointing towards the profile picture of the person who shared it, right? Yeah, and it got more shares than usual, and it was fun. And I found that people do want to express their love for 2 dots, and sometimes they just need an easy way to do it. So making them advocates just kind of means providing them with the right tools to do so, along with showing them empathy.
Do you reward these advocates? Like if they do post content, do you guys send personal thank you notes? We've heard some people, Matt at TinyCo actually sends notes to his players. Do you guys have any sort of kind of community outreach to say thank you?
Matt at TinyCo is the man, and he empathizes with people. He knows how to do it, right? So it's a good question. I am sending swag, 2 dot swag, like these hoodies and these shirts to people. Yeah, and that's and I came back from the Game Developers Conference 2015, kind of renewed in my approach to that. I'd been giving those hoodies out and those shirts out as Band-Aids for people when they express problems. I'd be like, oh, okay, I'm so sorry that we couldn't fix this issue for you. Can we please give you this to make up for it? And instead, I think a more proactive approach would be just using these bits of swag to celebrate that they love dots. So we haven't rewarded people yet for being advocates with hoodies, but that's exactly where I'd like to go for sure. I think it's something that should be more of a positive incentive rather than a Band-Aid for a boo-boo or anything.
Awesome. And I'm going to go off tangent just a little bit because something just went off in my mind when we're talking about feedback. Right? So we do what we call our weekly app review on our blog. It's managed by my colleague, Devin Turner. And every week he puts an app into HelpShift, and we can actually see the ratings, right? See the reviews that are in the App Store, the Google Play Store. And one thing that we've really noticed is that they're not actual reviews. It's feedback on your product. It's people's opinion, the people that are using you're playing your game day to day. How do you guys kind of internalize that at Dots and kind of gauge the value of in-app feedback rather than having to look to the App Store to see kind of how you guys should be doing your product iterations, et cetera?
You want to take this one on? Or?
Yeah, sure. So we, we use, HelpShift and other tools to aggregate our comments, views. Eric actually does this for the team, and he puts out a weekly newsletter and looks at all the reviews. We also respond to reviews on Google Play. Each one, we take note of the device if there's any issues. We have a whole process for this. And the idea is that we internalize the reviews and feedback. Mostly in aggregation, so like the most popular ones, typically like we'll have people complaining about a particular level or a particular phrase, and we aggregate those over time and we look at which ones are have heavier weights. And then Eric takes that and he gives it to our product team, and then they go through the reviews and they fix actually or they'll go through the comments and they'll fix rebalance levels or fix particular issues. And the idea is that we try to do it as fast as possible. So we want to respond. Ideally, we want to do this in real time. And it's important because your star rating is a sign of validation in the marketplace. And so, you go and you download an application and you see it has 1 star. I mean, you might actually not even download it. If you see something that has 5 stars and tons of reviews, it's a really strong form of validation. So we look at that not only as making our players more happy, but it has effects on conversion when people are going to the App Store, and ultimately even helps lower costs, we think.
Awesome.
It's helpful. The feedback that we get via the App Store or whatever, Helpship, turns me into a sharpshooter when it comes to talking to the dev team. There's a million things to bug them about all the time, but knowing what to prioritize is what I get out of what Christian just talked about.
Okay, great. And that kind of, we are kind of at the end of our time here, but you guys have really outlined kind of your brand promise. And how would you kind of say that the 2 roles that you guys have at Dots help really deliver on that brand, the brand delivery of that promise?
Man, the feedback that we get is so honest and so consistent. I have very little choice but to take the most pressing needs that the players are experiencing and communicate them clearly and efficiently to the other people here at Dots. There's just no getting around it. It has to be done. Otherwise, we see things like churn. I'm sorry, churn is a term in some of the gaming industry.
No, we use it here all the time. We know it.
Yeah. All right. We see things like churn. We see things like a decline in likes on Facebook posts. It's very visible and very fast. So it's an immediate help getting emails and getting Facebook comments, getting in-app reviews, because it's the people crying out pretty much in one voice. Hey, this level is terrible. Please help me. Please empathize with me. So there are clear directions for me.
Yeah. Eric and I are both, ambassadors to our brand, and really speak for, I think, what the players want, and then also what the team wants from a culture perspective, and trying to enforce that as we, interface mostly with users, as opposed to, our engineers and some of the product folks that don't actually have the opportunity to engage one-on-one with users. So we're an ambassador, we're ambassadors for the brand, listening, to both the team and our community, and trying to enforce what we think is best for the brand as a whole.
Awesome, Christian. That's kind of a great way to wrap it up. But what I like to do at the end of these webinars, these hangouts, is to turn it over to you guys. And for everybody on the line, kind of what are the top 3 key takeaways that you have for this event around, engaging your players to kind of spark that virality, spark advocacy, spark engagement? Where should people begin?
Yeah, I think it's a long-term strategy. So that's important to realize. And
it's happen overnight, right?
Yeah. And I think it's understanding the most valuable forms of engagement for you. For us, it's like, retweets and likes, and shares, and seeing that grow over time, and doing things to help that grow over time, the baseline form of that engagement, and seeing it grow. And I think that's extremely, extremely important. It's something that we do, and understanding the effects of that over time, extremely, extremely important.
Yeah, I got to reiterate the trial and error thing again. I cannot stress enough how important that's been on my end. Just having the breathing room to just let loose, see what works. It might take a while, but it's certainly paying off for me personally right now. I feel like now that I've seen what has failed and what does well over the last few months, I feel super equipped to at least approach virality with more confidence than I used to.
There you go.
Yeah, it's that form of trial and error. You know, it's like these things it's a lot of hard work. It doesn't happen overnight. And having the ability to test new things and being okay with like doing something that's maybe doesn't work out. And you know, having the breathing room and the ability to test, and then when you find something that works out, continuing to do it to, you know, that improves that particular KPI, which for us is likes and retweets.
And I would say having the right team in place, right? Like just from talking to you guys in the last 30 minutes, and Christian, I know that we've had the opportunity to work together from the beginning of the More Summit, but really having that passion for your company, the passion to be that brand ambassadors, that translates to community. And I think that's something that our audience sometimes forgets, and they feel like they need to just build this team to build this team, but you have to build the right team, the team that understands your community, understands your players, because they'll be automatically kind of ingrained with that passion and enthusiasm to really connect. So I would say that kind of rounds out the third piece of the puzzle. Does that sound good to you guys?
Absolutely, yeah. We're a very happy team here. As we're maybe about 23 now. It still feels like family, and the culture to us and is like the number one thing here. So I completely agree with you.
Awesome. All right. Well, on behalf of HelpShift, I want to say thank you both so much. I know I learned a lot. I actually took notes during kind of the conversation that we had. I look forward to seeing you both in San Francisco. Eric and Christian are joining us from New York, so that's the value of these hangouts. I can talk to anybody at any time. Guys, any last thoughts before I wrap it up?
Man, take risks. That's about it.
Yeah, thank you so much for this opportunity, and we appreciate it.
Really appreciate this.
Just to let everybody on the line know, our next webinar will be in 2 weeks from today, where I will be hosting Drama Fever to talk about how to scale your customer support in a global era. So we look forward to that. So guys, enjoy the sunshine that I know you're experiencing in New York, and thank you to everybody on the line.
Take care.
Take care.
Bye.
Take care. Bye.